Hey guys, well, after a lot of research and preliminary planning, we think we know where we're going for 2025, and it's going to be pretty much an epic trip, epic road trip. So Miriam, where are we going to go?
We are heading north to Alaska in 2025.
Absolutely, and it took a little bit of persuasion, but we finally got our finance guy to give us the thumbs up on this trip, and we began to assemble the other cast of characters. Our video production guy seems to be totally on board with this.
I'm excited to be part of this. This is going to be awesome. I went ahead and put together a preliminary opening for your consideration. If you would roll it, please.
We are John and Miriam. We may call coastal Virginia home, but the open road beckons us. Back in 2022, we rode our Am Spyder on an epic road trip from our home to the California coast and back. We then began setting our sights on something even more epic. Miriam, where are we?
Well, John, we're at the southernmost point of the United States.
This is so cool. Now, what do we do for an encore?
How about head north?
We plan to drive through 7 states, 3 Canadian provinces, and the Yukon Territory, including the historic 1,400-mile-long Alaskan Highway, before reaching our 49th U.S. state. Then a 3-day ferry ride back to Washington State, then east crossing 10 more states before reaching home 65 days later. The size and the scope of this trip is kind of hard to get my mind around. It's going to take us 4,000 miles of driving just to get to Fairbanks, and that's before we make our left turn and head down to the south end of the state. If you consider the Great Circle route and you take a straight line from our home to Fairbanks, Alaska, which is 3,500 miles straight line, and you double that, you're just off the coast of Tokyo, Japan. The only paved road, and that's even arguable, many say it's probably not really paved all the way, into Alaska is the Alaskan Highway. It's a 1,400-mile 2-lane road. And Alaska's kind of remote, although statistically 360,000 people do drive the Alaskan Highway annually. If you compare it to such places as Disney World in Florida, they have 58 million guests per year compared to the 360,000 that drive to Alaska. Alaska itself is kind of big and it's kind of remote. It's only 650 miles from the edge of the Russian Siberia area. It's mostly uninhabited with only just a few roads that go through the state. The population is 733,000. To put it in perspective, Virginia Beach alone has half of that in its population. The distance between services in the North Country is pretty significant. Things like gas, food, and lodging are pretty well spread out, although they are available, so you have to really plan out your driving in advance and your overnight accommodations. We're trying to plan a lot of flexibility into our itinerary because if you follow the channel, you know things happen. So we want to make sure that we're able to meet those issues when they pop up and have a little bit of flexibility in our schedule. This is not my first trip to Alaska. I was fortunate enough to be assigned to Fairbanks, Alaska in January of 1979 with the United States Air Force. It was just a temporary duty assignment where the average daytime temperature was 20 below zero. I was 19 years old and I absolutely loved it. So one of the questions we are being asked is, why are we not taking the Spyder to Alaska? Well, a lot of reasons, which we'll get into in later videos, but the primary reason is the belt drive on the Spyder. There is a section of highway that we want to take. It's a gravel road for hundreds of miles, and the Spyder's simply not designed for that. I'm aware of another content creator whose motorcycle broke down in that part of the North Country, and the tow bill to Fairbanks was $5,000. We don't want that kind of risk. So we decided to take our Toyota 4Runner off-road version, which is, we picked up this vehicle primarily for the Alaska trip in the pre-planning. Well, we needed a new vehicle anyway, so we decided to go with that one. Our dates for this trip were not just accidental, they were actually very purposeful, picked out. The time of the year and the year itself was picked purposefully. And why is that? Well, several reasons. And also, we don't have a very specific launch date yet for another specific set of reasons, which we'll go into in a moment. And clear prop. So we literally began talking about this trip when we got back from the 2022 trip, the lap around America. And one of the goals for this trip was to experience the Aurora Borealis, commonly referred to as the Northern Lights. And I got to see those when I was in Alaska back in 1979, and Miriam has never seen this. We definitely want to take the opportunity to see those when we can. Now, they happen pretty much every year, but there is a season for them. The sun has an average of an 11-year cycle, and 2025 should be the peak of that 11-year cycle. And that should put a slam dunk in the middle of our trip. Also, we don't want to go in the middle of summer because there's no nighttime, and you sort of need the nighttime, or there's not much nighttime. And you want to be able to have some darkness so you can actually see the Northern Lights. So that's one of the reasons we picked 2025. Plus, it took us a little time to get our finances arranged because this trip is not going to be cheap, and to make sure we're ready for that. Now, why are we going in the springtime as opposed to another time of the year? Well, there's basically two seasons in Alaska, as they're fond of saying. There is winter time, and then there is road repair season. If you go in the springtime, the weather can be a little chilly, but that is preferable to the summertime when there is. It can get warm in Alaska. It can get in the 90s, and I don't want to experience that. We get that here. Also, there's wildfires that are naturally occurring because of lightning strikes, and the region is full of smoke. I want to be able to see the mountains and the landscape and not see smoke if we can avoid it. In addition, the warmer the weather gets, there are the problem with the mosquitoes, which is the Alaskan state bird. And the rainy season begins to pick up. I think generally peaks around September. July is rainy, August is rainier, and September is the most rainiest for the period we want to go to. And once you get after that into October, you start getting into snow and icing conditions and cold weather. And we're trying to avoid that. I'm getting the 4Runner, getting its oil change and its state inspection done, and I'm gonna go pay for it, and then when Miriam gets home from work this afternoon, she can run me up here to pick it up. And they close at 5, so I'm gonna go ahead and pay for it before she gets home, and we can come pick it up later. Plus, it's a beautiful day to go for a ride. It gives me a chance to warm up the Spyder. Be back in a minute. I like this little shop. We've been going to it for several years. You know, I want to be able to trust the people to do good work where we put our vehicles in their care. And they do good work. They've always impressed us with their quality of work. Keys would be nice. So if you happen to be in the Southside Hampton Roads area and need something work done on your vehicle, I recommend Davis Auto Care on London Bridge Road. They do a good job. All right. So we've been working fast and furious to work on the trip, and we're getting ready to start to make reservations, but we don't have an actual lunch date. Why? Our overall strategy for the trip is not to camp, but to rely on commercially available accommodations such as hotels, inns, rental cabins, and alike. The only problem is, in the North Country, the availability of this type of accommodation is scarce. So it behooves us to make reservations well in advance. We can't make reservations until we're really sure of our timetable. And we can't be really sure of our timetable until the Alaska Ferry system posts its summer schedule. It hasn't done that yet. Currently, the ferry, which goes from Haines, Alaska to Bellingham, Washington, only leaves once a week. We don't want to take a chance of missing the ferry, so our timing has got to put us fairly close to Haines, Alaska before the departure date. The current departure dates are either Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, depending on the scheduled high tides. Commercial shipping in that area is dependent on the tides. So if we extrapolate those dates until June, so if we arrive in Haines several days before the earliest possible departure time, it would be preferable to have a couple of extra days to tour Haines, as opposed to scrambling to try to catch the ferry, or even worse, miss the ferry and then have to wait a week. So why the ferry? Why not just drive back? Well, Miriam wants to visit Vancouver, Canada. It's about 50 miles from Bellingham, Washington, where the ferry lands in Washington. And we could backtrack on the Alaskan Highway and take the Cassiar Highway back. But by the time you add up the accommodations and the gas, compare it to the price of the ferry, to include our stateroom and bringing the vehicle, it's fairly comparable. So that will give us basically a miniature cruise. We'll have our own stateroom, and we'll either have 3 or 4 days depending on the tidal schedule for the actual departure date. So give us a chance to get caught up on some rest, do some videos, and just relax for a few days and actually experience that part. Maybe even do some whale watching while we're out there. So that's going to be an experience. And not to mention, at that point, we've probably already driven about 5,500 miles with another 3,500 miles left to go. So it'll be a nice break in the driving. It's often said that if your goals don't scare you a little bit, they're not big enough. Although I'm not necessarily scared, it is a little intimidating for something of this big of an adventure. And I know a lot of people do this, take their RVs up north and motorcycles. I've never done anything quite as complex as this, so it's a little intimidating. We finished the first part, which is the actual initial planning. Next comes the preparation. We have an endless list of things to do and to accomplish before we head out here in 6 more months. And one of the most important things is we need to make sure we have a place where we can place our parrot while we're gone. We have found a vet that offers boarding services, so Dimitri will at least have some human interaction while we're gone. So there you go. That is our plan. Now if we could just pull it off, that'd be great. So guys, we'll catch you later. Take care. Bye-bye.
A field trip. So I'll see you later. Probably. Oh.
The obligatory goodbye kiss.
If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up. If you want to see more of our travel-related content, just check out the rest of our channel. And don't forget to subscribe.
We don't know where we're going, we just want to get gone.